Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble all Gurus to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances, all Gurus to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. I welcome you all for today's session. Maharaj, can you please let us know about today's topic, Maharaj? So, if yes.
So you remember we just completed chapter 22 from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila entitled Devotional Service.
Yes.
This is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami, giving us somewhat detailed but not complete overview of the entire process of Bhakti Yoga. What is Bhakti Yoga? What it comprises? What are the things that need to be avoided? And what is the actual goal of Bhakti Yoga? So in that chapter, we covered many relevant, interesting points. Now, the science of Bhakti Yoga, as given by the acharyas in our Gaudiya Sampradaya, is coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and through Srila Rupa Goswami here, who is our Abhideya Acharya, or that person who teaches the science of Bhakti Yoga. And that is written down quite extensively in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is Nectar Devotion. Nectar Devotion is a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu given by Srila Prabhupada. Actually, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is written in verse form. Srila Prabhupada had taken it and condensed it into a more like written form, taking the essence of the verses and presenting it in a systematic way according to Rupa Goswami's procedure of presentation. So today I will just give a small preview of the 6 characteristics that make up pure devotional service. A pure devotional service consists of 3 categories of activities: Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti contains Vaidhi Bhakti, which is rules and regulations. Bhava Bhakti is 6 stages of different emotional expressions, each one higher to of Prema Bhakti. Once one completes those 6 stages and has matured to that level, one enters into the final stage of Bhakti called Prema Bhakti, which is the goal of Bhakti, and that has 8 stages. With that much said, I'll offer the invocation. Om Agyan Timidandasya Jnana Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manoistam Taptitam Yena Bhutalai Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swam Padantikam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasyatya De Satarine Kripa Sindhu Preva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radhara Sivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But Srila Prabhupada called Nectar Devotion the law book or the science of Krishna consciousness. He also called it the handbook. And he encouraged the devotees to read and study that book. And he also gave their devotion at one particular point in his time with us on earth. That was in 1972, where he spoke practically for more than 1 month every day on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In that he said, read it once, read it twice, read it thrice. It's a book that requires a great amount of study, understanding, and clarification after reading, because it is not so easy to understand. But it's the entire science of bhakti. And I use the word science, it applies to the execution of the devotional service. Devotional service is both consciousness and application. Consciousness is not enough. One has to apply the consciousness in a direct way through activities which make up the process of bhakti yoga. And so consciousness is the essential principle of the living entity's existence. Association with material energy, according to the three modes of material nature, produces 8,400,000 different types of consciousness, which manifest in 8,400,000 different species of life. So you can see how the material contamination has such varieties of manifestations in different species of life. This is all due to a slight degree in change of consciousness. Those are our five. There are birds, there are aquatics, there are plants, creepers, trees, there are beasts, and then there are human forms. And then within the human forms, there are higher forms of human. So in those five categories, we get 8 million. But all of these are foreign to the soul's existence. The soul's existence is pure consciousness, or that consciousness which is uncovered by any of the effects of the three modes of material nature. And that is called pure Krishna consciousness, or Uttama Bhakti. It's the highest form of expression of the soul's love for Krishna, manifested by service to Krishna. So this the science of bhakti is quite intricate, very detailed, and has been approached from different angles of vision. For our own edification, Srila Prabhupada has given us Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And in the beginning of that book, in the first chapter, it mentions the 6 characteristics that make up Bhakti Yoga, or we may say Uttama Bhakti or Pure Bhakti. And today I'll mention and speak a little characteristics. They're unique to bhakti, and they cannot be found anywhere else. Okay, the first one, I'll read the Sanskrit. It's called Klesha Gi. It destroys material suffering. So to associate with the material energy in any of the three modes means to take on a type of suffering. Our bodies are a combination of the three modes of material nature according to our association with that nature. And there's different levels of suffering according to the type of body you have. But ultimately, anything outside of the soul's pure existence has an element of suffering on it. When we perform activities in the material world, we automatically create suffering. This suffering automatically comes simply by association with the external energy. So no one can avoid suffering. Well, one of the qualities, 6 unique qualities of pure bhakti, it destroys suffering. And suffering manifests itself in 4 different ways. It's called avidya, bija, papam, and klesham, ignorance, material desires, reactions from the material desires, and then ultimately klesha. Klesha means suffering. We also hear how material energy imposes three types of suffering upon us, karmic connections, and that is sufferings that come by body and mind, suffering that comes with other living entities, and suffering that comes by higher powers. These are called Adhyatmika Klesha, Adhibhautika Klesha, Adhidaivika Klesha. Klesha simply means suffering. All of these sinful actions, both in this life and what was accumulated in previous life. When we perform bhakti yoga, we are uprooting the reactions of sinful activities. Therefore, when a devotee comes to Krishna, the process of bhakti under the guidance of a spiritual master, they are gradually uprooting the reactions of their past karmic activities. Now, from the point of view of bhakti, even pious or what we say activities in the mode of good considered elements of suffering. Why? Because they take one away from one's pure consciousness. And therefore there are, that is also uprooted by the process of bhakti. The lower modes such as passion and ignorance destructive both for the individual and for the person and for people around. So passion means to act selfishly in order to gain material sense gratification. And goodness means to act on a platform of material, such as developing good qualities with a desire to enjoy the material world. And this is where it falls short. This is where the suffering comes in. As soon as there's any desire to enjoy the material world, suffering is automatically present. Now, do devotees actually suffer? Actually, no. Devotees do not suffer. Those who are engaged in devotional service may experience some kind of reactions from their previous activities, just like when you pull out the plug of a fan. When you engage in devotional service, the analogy is the pulling out the plug of a fan. The fan will still continue to spin, even though there's no more power feeding into the fan itself. So when we engage in devotional service, we are still winding down some of our reactions to sinful activities. It looks this residue from our previous activities. It's not any new karma, because devotional service is called akarma. It doesn't produce any reactions, good or bad. Any happiness that a devotee experiences in Krishna consciousness is past karmic activities. It's all due to their activities in bhakti. So about devotees in happiness and distress is not due to good and bad karma, but to bhakti itself. And Krishna sees that if a devotee is very serious in execution of devotional service, he removes the reactions of sinful activities through the process of bhakti and the effects of also of what is called good karma, which eventually to suffering. So bhakti destroys material suffering, which comes by the association of material energy like that. So if a devotee is suffering, it has nothing to do with their karma from previous. It may come a way of purifying the devotee. It appears to be suffering, but it actually isn't. It's the medicine applied to the devotee, just like a doctor applies a medicine. The medicine is not meant for suffering, but the medicine may not be so tasty in the very beginning or at all. but it uproots the disease. At the same time, the medicine of bhakti may look like another form of suffering, but it's Krishna's way of purifying the devotee, and as the devotee is engaging in devotional service. Now, suffering, I'll read, there's 4 types of aparabdha, kutam, bijam, and parabdha. And I'll read, sinful reactions that are not to be experienced in the present life, the effects that are not fructified, that is called aparadha. Kutam, these are progressive now. Sinful reactions were an effect. In other words, they're about the effects of the seed is ready to fructify. Bijam, sinful reactions which are about to be experienced and are in the form of impressions. That's called vasana mayam. And then parabdha karma, this is what was Marie. Sinful actions which are already mature and are being experienced in the present life. So the process of bhakti uproots all 4 of these different levels of material suffering. Okay, so that's the first benediction. There's much more we can mention on that. The second benediction, or characteristic, I should use the word characteristic, is bhakti bestows all auspiciousness. One who worships the Lord pleases everyone in the world. Now that's a very hard statement. How can everyone in the world be pleased by bhakti? By a bhakti of a devotee? Because Krishna is the source, or the object, that's a better word, the object of our bhakti. When Krishna is pleased by the activity of a devotee, he bestows favor on that. But when Krishna is pleased, that benediction goes out everywhere. So this is very important to understand, because sometimes people criticize devotees, well, you're not doing anything for society. Breaking away from society, you're not contributing, you're just interested in worshiping the Lord. But that worship is like a rainfall that goes onto the rocks, onto the grass, of course, onto the ocean. The rain goes everywhere. Devotional service and pleases the Lord. The happiness that Krishna feels, the pleasure that Krishna feels, pervades outward, and everyone benefits for that. How they benefit, that is very hard to understand, but in other words, it creates auspiciousness. It might seem like a conjecture that because of the presence of devotional service in the world is still going on. Otherwise, the sinful activities of the non-devotees is enough to destroy the entire world as it is right now. But because of the devotees, Lord, in pure devotional service, that gives auspiciousness to everything. And therefore, we have what we say, the present world situation is becoming quite bleak, but still by the presence of the devotees, things are going on according to gifts of material nature are still being provided, even to the non-devotees. There are 4 types of auspiciousness. It benefits everyone. It attracts everyone. It bestows all good qualities and gives superior happiness. And this is the characteristics of auspiciousness, one of the qualities of pure devotional service. One who worships the Lord pleases everyone. We mentioned that. Develops good character, and one good character is seen as one of the highest qualities a person can exhibit in the world. Therefore, bhakti gives happiness that comes by developing all good qualities, and that is the auspiciousness of bhakti. And it also creates the ability to perform superhuman activities. And these are the 8 mystic perfection called mystic yogas, also known as siddhis. And that is mentioned also in the Nectar Devotion and Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and very detailed explanation of the mystic cities. There are 18 mystic cities, 8 primary and 10 secondary. And so these auspiciousness comes out in the form of also developing accordingly. The third principle of bhakti is, it's called moksha ladbhutakrit. Bhakti makes liberation look insignificant. You'll find in today's world, many of the religious organizations are always looking for liberation as the goal. Sometimes they call it salvation. They call it freedom from material suffering. They have different terminologies. But many spiritual groups or people in religious practices don't focus on the ultimate goal, and that is to love God as the goal. But bhakti is about loving Krishna. Therefore, bhakti liberation is insignificant. As Bilva Mangala Thakur has explained, mukti and bhukti, mukti, liberation, bhukti, material happiness, are standing at my door with folded hands, ready to serve me at any time. Because bhukti and mukti are followers of bhakti and not the goal of bhakti. Srila Prabhupada would always say, when you're engaged in devotional service, you are already liberated. In other words, devotional service is above the 3 modes of material nature, which is the liberated platform. And therefore, one who's engaged in devotional service doesn't cultivate liberation separately. It is already there. But liberation is also seen, there is liberations that come by way of bhakti also. That is to have the same bodily features as the Lord, to live on the same planet of the Lord, the same opulences of the Lord. There are 5 types of liberation. Of course, the impersonal liberation, that is merging into the bodily existence of the Lord, is shunned by all practitioners of devotional service. But pure devotional service overrides and makes bhakti makes mukti look insignificant. So that insignificance is an indication of the superiority of bhakti over everything. And the essence of liberation is freedom from all material suffering, material activities, material desires. But bhakti is superior to that. Nectar of devotion, that if you multiply the happiness given by liberation millions of times, you'll get 1 drop of the happiness that is available in pure devotional service. And that is one of the upcoming benefits, its characteristics. It's called Sandrananda Visheshatma, Bhakti manifest condensed bliss. Prahlad said to Lord Nrsingadev, I am being merged into an ocean of transcendental pleasure in your presence. I consider the happiness of impersonal Brahman as insignificant as water in the hoof print of a calf. So this is a nice statement by Prahlad Maharaj. The Lord offered him any benediction he wanted. He refused to accept anything. He was simply satisfied as just the devotee finds complete happiness simply in the activities of devotional service. A devotee doesn't look for any material results in devotional service to give them satisfaction, nor are they unhappy by apparent results do not come up to a desired standard. In other words, they are detached from the results of all activities because they are fixed simply in devotional service. And as again, devotional service is free from all activities. Ayabila Sita Sunya Jnana Karma Nanavritam. Rupa Goswami explains jnana and karma, which people perform in order to get auspicious results or elevation to higher realms of material existence, are free. And so bhakti gives condensed bliss or happiness, that happiness which is not coming from anything else but the activity of devotional service. It comes by coming in contact with Krishna himself through the activities of devotional service. So that is qualities of devotional service. Another one is bhakti is rarely attained. Now, this is very important for us to understand. It's only by the grace of the Lord coming through his representative that one can execute devotional service. It is not, it's causeless by any pious activities or by any abilities on the material level. It is simply causeless. It's the mercy of the Lord coming through his mercy manifestation, the spiritual master. And causeless. Although it is titled as causeless, what is the cause? The cause is the kindness of the Lord. So it does have a cause. Well, how come some people take to it and some people don't take to it? In the sense that some people come in contact with it and can't recognize and then don't take advantage of it, and others come in contact and immediately can recognize that this is for their, their own good fortune. Well, that is a matter of their previous conditioning, but if they can accept the principles based on Shastra, this is the activities of the human beings, and accept it from that way, they can overcome their negative, or what we say, deficient consciousness, to recognize and to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Devotional service is, although it is readily available, so we have to see the contrary here. Many people are exposed to it. It's available to anyone and everyone throughout the existence. Very few actually attain to it. It's more like you might say 50 people are working hard to become successful in the world in order to gain some position and gain some financial security based on that. Maybe only, although all are working in the same direction, only a few attain to that. So in the same way, many people may be exposed to bhakti, many may hear about it, many may also come in contact with it directly, but very few can take it up as their life's mission. So, and then therefore it's called. It says, even if practiced profusely, sadhana bhakti, for a long time, if one doesn't have attachment for Krishna, then the higher stages of bhakti cannot be attained. So this is a little bit about bhava bhakti, which is the higher stages of sadhana bhakti. We also call it raganuga bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service. Krishna doesn't give bhakti so easily. One has to qualify themselves, but it is attained. When we say Krishna doesn't give himself so easily, that is the area of really attained. Liberation is attained by jnana yoga, and material enjoyment by punya karma, or good karma. However, bhakti cannot be easily attained even if one practices thousands of practices of sadhanas other than bhakti. When performed austerities, penances, various types of worship, chanting mantras, sacrifices, elevations, all of these things, just like when Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita, he mentions Sarva Dharma Pradikshajam Mamekam Saranam Bhajam, abandoning all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. I will give you, protection. I will give you shelter. Do not fear. Do not hesitate. So what is Krishna saying? Abandoning all varieties of religion. He's saying giving up all other process of elevation, karma, gyan, yoga, various types of penances, austerities, worship, study, all of these things can help one move forward away from the lower modes, and bring one to the higher mode. But unless one actually surrenders to Krishna, that means agrees to the orders of Krishna coming through the spiritual master, one cannot attain a foothold in devotional attained. And we mentioned how bhakti gives the highest form of bliss. And the last of the 6 categories is bhakti attracts Krishna. It's called Sri Krishna Karshini. Because bhakti makes Krishna addicted to love and brings him under the control along with his association. Bhakti, or pure love, when we're speaking of bhakti, we're speaking of pure bhakti, attracts Krishna. Nothing can attract Krishna other than pure bhakti. Only attracted by pure love, nothing else. So how do we worship Krishna if we do not have pure love? How do we make advancement in our devotional service even if we don't have pure love? Because if we don't have pure love in our activities of devotional service, and serve. Well, we can't, but we can serve through the spiritual master who is fixed in devotional service. If we follow the instructions of the spiritual master, he takes our efforts to serve the Lord and offers it to the Lord through his pure devotion, and based on that. So that's why the spiritual master is the bridge between Krishna and the devotees. And when the devotees develop in their love for Krishna through the instructions of the spiritual master and develop the consciousness and the activities that are conducive, then gradually they also come to the stage of developing pure love for Krishna. And then that is the ultimate goal like that. But Krishna cannot be controlled by yoga, sankhya, karma, study, austerity, nothing. Oh, Krishna, except pure love. And that pure love, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Saruka Bonoi, Sravanadi Siddhi Chitte Kodiya Yadoi, exists within the hearts of all living beings. So it's important that we understand make up devotional service. That is in the first chapter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Nectar Devotion. I would encourage devotees to read. There's lengthy explanations on each of these 6 categories of characteristics of pure devotional service. We'll understand what are some of the qualifications required in order to make progress in devotional service. Because if we don't know the benefits of devotional service, if we don't know what is not devotional service in our practice of devotional service, and not make any advancement in there. So it's important to see that and then to understand that and learn to move forward. If we're not expert in studying, we can always ask the spiritual master based on our own activities, and then we can clarify and then take the instructions, take the corrections, and move forward like that. Conclusion: the greatness of bhakti is uniquely glorified by these six qualities. Categories of bhakti: sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. So what we mentioned, these six characteristics, the first two are in sadhana, the second two are in bhava bhakti, and the third is in prema bhakti. And these will be described later in the nectar devotion. Even if one has little taste for the topics of bhakti, one can understand. And one who tries to understand bhakti by dry logic cannot understand it, because logic is insubstantial. The conclusion of a skillful logician can be defined logician by mental speculation and argument process. So one must follow the authorities. Mahajano yena katasa panta. One must follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans, the great souls, and that is according to that there are 12 Mahajans. We are in the category of following Lord Brahma. He is the Mahajan within our Sampradaya. And those acharyas that come in that line, they are all qualified to give pure devotional service. And we are connecting we're connecting with that through Srila Prabhupada's instructions and the practice of devotional service as given by Srila Prabhupada and as presented by his disciples. Okay, so these are the and of course, just to top it off, Krishna is called Madan Mohan, that he attracts everyone who is attracted by Cupid. Cupid is the attracting force in the material world. He's called Madan. And Madan is so powerful that attracts everyone, but not Krishna. But Krishna is attracted by Madan Mohan Mohini, and that is Radharani. She is the attractor, one who attracts everyone, and therefore she is more powerful than Krishna because she is the personification of unalloyed Ananya Bhakti, pure devotional service. So the whole science of pure devotional service is personified by Srimati Radharani. So one who takes shelter of Srimati Radharani, which is personified by Swami in Nectar of Devotion. So this particular book needs to be read, understood, applied, and when we understand that, then we can understand the beauty of the science of bhakti. It's as where beauty attracts Krishna, so in the same way, bhakti is very beautiful. Everything about bhakti is beautiful, and it attracts he who is the source of all beauty, Krishna himself. Okay. And Krishna told Uddhava, my devotional service brings me under control. So even Krishna declares what controls him. Okay, so I'll stop there, and any questions or comments or anything about devotional service?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for explaining us about these 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. Thank you so much. I request devotees, if there are any questions, comments, please go ahead. Namrata Mataji has raised her hand. Mataji, please go ahead.
We also requested devotees to turn on their
Yes, please turn on the cameras. Mataji, please go ahead. Mataji, you are on mute.
Maharaj. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, I was reading a nectar drop from Srila Prabhupada, which says that liberation, even after liberation, one can get into the pangs of birth and death. How is that, Maharaj?
Because liberation is temporary. It explains that there is a verse in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Aruna Krishnena Padam Padam Padanti Yadan Nadritya Ushma Hangraya. That those persons who practice penances and austerities can climb very high on the spiritual platform and attain liberation. But padanti yada means they fall down again. Why? Because they don't develop bhakti. Bhakti is the nature of the soul, and bhakti means love. Love is the feature of the living entity's existence. Without love, no one can continue to find any kind of satisfaction in life in any other forms. So these persons who attain high stages of liberation, unless they go from that, just like we have the example of the four Kumaras, but they were Brahma bodies, and they had come in contact with the lotus feet of the Lord by smelling the tulsi leaves and sandalwood paste. Simply by that aroma that attracted them, their Brahmavadi realization, and they wanted to engage in devotional service. So unless one comes to devotional service, they will traverse different levels of existence, sometimes in higher realms, sometimes in lower realms. So liberation is a stage below bhakti, but it doesn't qualify one to remain there. One has to again come back to the material world and perform, because the nature of the living entity is activity. And so unless we are performing activity to Krishna, we have to perform material activities. Even if those material activities are very lofty and very high material activities, still they're still within the realm of the mode of goodness. So unless one comes to bhakti, yes, Aruna Krishnena Padam Padan Padanti Yada, they fall down again into the material world. The example is many great sadhus you see today, they have attained liberation, but because they didn't go higher, they come back and open hospitals, perform welfare work, open up businesses for various types of welfare work for people in general. The nature of the soul is activity. The soul cannot be free from activity. So unless they move from liberation to either bhakti, into the realm of bhakti, they fall down again to material activities. You have to, the principle is the soul is by nature active. It can't stay in the liberated stage. It has to either go up towards Krishna or into the material realm.
Okay, so that is why this Maharaj, this impersonal or the Jnana Yoga is said to be dry without any rasa. Is it because of that?
Can you repeat the question? I missed some of the words.
So is it because of that the impersonalists they are said to be dry without any
Yeah,
rasas?
yeah,
It's
yeah. Because bhakti, well, spiritual life has three stages. There is Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, and Bhagavan realization. So the impersonalists usually get Brahman realization, and some also attain realization. But Brahman realization gives you realization of eternality. Paramatma realization gives you a realization of knowledge along with eternality. But Bhagavan realization, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Bliss is the constitutional nature of the soul's existence to achieve ultimate happiness. So because they don't come to Bhagavan realization, Vadanti Tattadvad Vidvam, Gyagyanam Avayam Brahmeti Paramat Jite. Because they don't come to that stage, then they usually fall down to a lower stage eventually, because the happiness is not there. There's some happiness in liberation, but that happiness is more or less a counteracting of the suffering. Just like if you're get well again, the suffering of sickness is done. So in the same way, counteracting various types of material sufferings are more or less the feature of the happinesses that are attained by liberation. But the real, the nature of the soul is Ananda. And Ananda is our existence. So Rasa Vaisa, that Krishna is the reservoir of all rasas or relationships. The personalist can come to the stage of relationship. That means without devotional service. Neutrality is the first of the five rasas, and it's the lowest of all of the rasas. And generally, there's no activity there. There's a happiness that comes from freedom of material suffering. But unless one engages in relationships to Krishna, friendship, parental affection, or madhurya, or conjugal love, they cannot experience the higher, the actual happiness of the soul's existence. The soul is by nature joyful, but it remains covered until one comes to bhakti and serves Krishna in a particular way.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. That
Yeah,
clarifies.
the impersonalists don't get to that stage, and therefore they fall. That's why it says it's temporary.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Sri Devi.
Please accept my humble obeisances, dear Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for this class, reminding us about the importance of understanding how to actually get a foothold in bhakti. As you were speaking, I was taking notes and I was thinking about how we are all trying to get engaged in bhakti and how the sentence you said that many lifetimes, no, let me read that again. Even if one is practicing sadhana bhakti for a long time, if there is no attachment for Krishna, then the higher stages cannot be attained. So this sentence is quite significant. We might be wandering around then for who knows how many lifetimes if we do not develop our attachment for Krishna through the process of bhakti. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So then
Yeah,
how do we
attachment for Krishna, and attachment turns into various stages of affection, and ultimately coming to the goal, which is pure love for Krishna. You have to understand that love for Krishna is natural. It's not something foreign, but it's covered. So we may execute bhakti in order to be free from material suffering, or we may execute bhakti in order to
I think we lost Guru Maharaj. I cannot hear anything suddenly.
Yes, Mataji.
I think some internet issue. Srimati Mataji, are you trying to connect to him, or shall we wait for him to?
Yeah, we'll wait, Mataji. Guru Maharaj will join.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Krishna Chaitanya.
Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram.
Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare.
Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Ram, Ram.
Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare Ram. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram
Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Krishna
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram
Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare, Ram
Hare
Ram
Ram Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna
Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare,
Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Ram
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna,
Hare Ram Ram Ram
Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram,
Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Hare Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Bhaidev
Hare Krishna Mataji, we'll wait 5 more minutes because if Guru Maharaj joins back.
Okay, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram